This is Nicholas Bell with IONCINEMA, and I'm here with Carter Smith after the premiere of his latest film, Jamie Marks is Dead, at the 2014 Sundance Film Festival, which is in competition. So I've been a huge fan since Bug Crush, and I'm a big fan of The Ruins, so I've been waiting and waiting and waiting.
Oh, good.
And I was thrilled to see this as part of the lineup, because I've been tracking it. And I have to say that I really liked it after seeing it this morning. So I guess I'll just jump right in. I read that it's been about a 3-year process to get this feature off the ground.
Yeah, I mean, probably about 3 years from when I first read the book.
Okay.
I picked up the book. I was really affected by it, and then I spent about a year doing the adaptation. I mean, because of my sort of day job, being a photographer, right. I was doing it bits and pieces when I could. And then, it took us a while to pull together all of the elements that we needed to make it. I mean, I mean, you've seen it, so you understand that it's a movie that's hard to categorize.
Yes.
It's not. I mean, it's a love story, it's a ghost story, it's a genre story, but it's not, sort of convention. It's not a classic horror movie. No. It's not it's not like a gay movie. It's not so it's sort of it defies a lot of the sort of neat boxes that people like to put films in.
Which is what I really liked about it. And this is the first time you've adapted, because The Ruins was adapted by the author of the novel.
Yeah, so I wrote the script for Bug Crush. I did the adaptation for Bug Crush.
Right, okay.
And this was very much like, this was, a very similar experience to Bug Crush. It was in the same DP, the same sound designer. It was a lot of the same crew working on this that we did Bug Crush together.
I did, notice a few similarities, maybe in tone a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think Bug Crush is darker.
Much darker.
But I want to bring up the title of the novel is One for Sorrow. At what point did you decide to change it to what it is now?
Well, One for Sorrow was it's a nursery rhyme. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for it's an old sort of
right.
It's an old rhyme, and in the book it played a part because it was something that Adam McCormick's grandmother would shared with him, and in the adaptation process the grandmother she wasn't there, and the rhyme just became less of a. It wasn't an element in the story. It wasn't. So it. I mean, as much as I didn't want to change it because I want people to discover Christopher's beautiful book. It didn't fit with the film that the story that we were telling.
Right. That makes sense. Otherwise, is it pretty faithful to the novel?
I think in tone, it's incredibly faithful. The events are there are things that are exactly lifted from the book, and then there are whole things that didn't exist in the book.
Is the rock collection from the
rock collection is yes.
Okay, because right away I thought of Long Trailer for some reason.
Yeah.
The steel ball collecting rocks, and they come into play, I guess, a little bit in the end. But
all of the final scene when Jamie comes into the that with the three of them, that wasn't in the book. Francis showing up at Jamie's house wasn't in the book.
Okay.
In the book. Jamie's death is explained entirely differently.
Okay.
It's so there's quite a bit that the tone of it is spot on, and Christopher has been super Barzak, who wrote the book, has been really supportive and loves the film. So
okay, cool.
We haven't done any great disjustice, hopefully.
Okay, that's good. I'm actually curious to read that now because I hadn't heard of it before. And also it's obvious that you're attracted to genre films. I haven't seen your book, but I've read what it's about, and so you not only genre, but kind of young adults or teenagers frequent all of your works.
Yeah, so far.
Is there any particular reason?
I don't know. I mean, I think that like in a way, like I've found that like I don't choose projects; they choose me. And it's just sort of happened. Like with Bug Crush, with The Ruins, with this film, it's all stuff that I found and sort of haven't been able to turn away from. And I didn't go out looking for it necessarily, but it has each piece has sort of found me and stayed with me in a way that like haunted me until I was like, okay, this is a film that I'm gonna make.
All right. Well, something I've noticed in the 3 that I've seen, the characters that are each kind of going down like a divergent path that maybe they shouldn't be, or they're just at that time of age where they have to make this choice. Like even in the Ruins, which is maybe more genre, they have to take that path that's hidden.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if that's just something that you liked.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that, the most interesting, I mean, I'm always drawn to material because of the characters and because of the relationships. And I think that one of the most interesting things is watching characters make difficult decisions.
Right.
And whether it's, do we cut off his legs or not, or do I let this ghost into my closet? Like,
right.
Like, difficult decisions are what defines character for me, and so, that's definitely something that I'm always looking for. Is the moments when people have to decide what they're going to do, and they're not easy decisions.
Right. Well, fate seems to, like Judy Greer's character, even in this is like fate, happens for a reason.
Yeah.
That seems to factor into them too. It's just it seems to have happened for a reason.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't want to classify it as a gay film by any means. But after watching it, I couldn't help but think that there's a strong motif of queer visibility,
Mm-hmm.
and historically speaking in cinema that. Homosexuality before it was allowed to be depicted was always kind of the specter.
Yeah.
So, Jamie Marks is, to me, I was reading into it as he's this tangible specter that's no longer on the sidelines. He's invading the scenes.
Yeah. Well, and I think also I think that Jamie is an incredibly lonely kid. He's and he's so desperate to make a connection and to have the affection and the friendship and the companionship that he'd never had when he was alive. And I think that because he ends up getting those things from Adam, it immediately brings to mind they have a physical intimacy. They have a physical the whole giving of the words is a physical exchange,
right?
Which is in itself something that a gay audience is going to read into,
right?
In a way that I think probably most audiences, but
it's not sexual per se, but it's an intimacy.
It's an intimacy.
Yeah.
It's an emotional intimacy,
right.
and that more than Jamie being in love with Adam or the idea that this emotional intimacy is what he was craving was really interesting. Sort of figuring out what how badly he wanted to make that connection, and how badly he needed that intimacy. Was something that we talked a lot about.
Right. And that, kind of going back to even Bug Crushed a little bit, and your experience with genre, even to a minor degree, gay characters don't frequent those kind of films, or
Yeah.
gay filmmakers, whoever wants to be labeled as that, aren't really making films that are deemed genre.
Yeah.
And do you?
It's. I've always loved genre
I
films,
too.
and so it's it's sort of like, and I sort of shy away from genre filmmaking. I mean, there's this year especially, there's a lot of talk about genre films at Sundance. But I think that if you go back and you look at some of the greatest horror films, they're indie films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and
definitely.
Halloween, and those are not just great horror films; they're great indie films, and they're films where people are struggling to tell the story that they want to tell,
Right, made off the cuff,
and and the same thing with sort of, I think that anytime you define yourself as a genre filmmaker or as a gay filmmaker or as it's just it just
limits you.
limits the type of material that people expect from you. And I think that there's something interesting about surprising people and
I agree, and it seems like I feel a lot of moments where queer characters do frequent genre cinema are attacked kind of as exploitational.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they are, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not just sort of shying away from the idea that there is a very strong subtext in Jamie Marks. Like it's there, and some people are going to see it more and respond to it more than others, or connect with it.
I thought the use of the closet was interesting.
Yeah, and that's directly from the book. I mean, that's like that's something that I always loved. That the closet became this like magical place where Adam could share. I mean, Jamie could share with Adam, what was special about his world.
Right. And I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
well,
it's right there.
And it's something he has to keep like ducking back into, and it's a metaphor for the hypothesis of the closet.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, like it's he's a really lonely kid, and it's about how hard it is to make those really genuine connections with people, whether you're trying to make them with your mother, with your sort of maybe girlfriend, with a it's sort of across the board how difficult it is, and for everybody, not just for a bullied kid.
Right. Because the process took so long, I'd also mention that casting had kind of been all over the place. Do you want to comment on how eventually that solidified? And you have some big names in there like Judy, Greer, and Liv Tyler, and how those might have helped things come along.
Yeah, well, we started with it was always about the kids. It was always about the boys and the sort of triangle, Adam, Jamie, and Gracie. So the biggest challenge was finding the boys, because I wanted kids that were actually teenagers, but I also needed kids that were incredibly talented and sort of able to pull off this like complex, subtle relationship that there's so much going on underneath the surface. And Noah Silver, who plays Jamie Marks, he had read an early draft of the script when he was in high school in France, and he put himself on tape and started sending himself tapes.
Okay.
And before we were in production, before we started the casting process, even. And then I read with him as Adam for a while, and it became just about trying to figure out who Adam and Jay, what was the best combination of the two of them. Because I didn't have any specific idea, okay, Jamie is this skinny brunette and Adam is I was open to, sort of whoever the best fit would be. And with a film like this too, waiting for financing to come through, it's tough because you never know 100% when you're really going to go. And, so many actors are available for a limited amount of time.
Right.
And, and Judy Greer is a friend of mine for a long time, and so I always, from day one, loved her as Lucy Hall. It was. I wrote that with her.
Okay, yeah, she's great.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
And I felt like her relationship with the mother, played by Liv Tyler, is kind of very similar to Jamie and Adam, as somebody that might be partially responsible for this devastating thing that happened, and now is almost like in a caretaker role.
Yeah, and that was something that was really interesting, how those two relationships mirrored each other. Lucy was maybe not the best thing for Linda, but Linda, in a weird way, got something from her that she needed. But also served to just make Adam feel more and more alienated from his day-to-day life.
Right. Well, I think it looks great. There's this kind of omnipresent dread through the whole thing, but you don't really know what's going to happen, and that's what I felt about Crush too. It's just just uneasy through most of it, but it's also quite touching, actually.
Hopefully this is a little bit more touching and a little more hopeful than than Bug Crush.
Definitely, and the lead actor played Cameron
Monaghan.
It was excellent. Just a very, very good performance. So I enjoyed it. But so thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Yes, of course.
And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.